Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Arsenal Direct Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Alonzo Lonnie Spencer, and joining me today is my friend Russ from England. Russ, how you doing, pal?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, very tired. Got back from holiday, but yes, I'm tired. But glad to be on with you. Thank you for your invite.
You're welcome. So, Russ, as we both have in common, we both had two things in common, at least that I know of. We all love Arsenal. We both love Arsenal, admiration of Arsenal. Throughout the past, 3 years now, we've come in second. You're a big Arsenal fan. You've been to some games before. I've been an Arsenal fan since 2008-9 season. The season before, Gareth had that temper tantrum at Birmingham, and you have all those injuries to key players like Eduardo da Silva, and he had a gruesome tackle against Birmingham. I don't know if you remember that, Russ, but um, yeah, it was a shame because it seems like every time we get in a position where we're going to win the league, something happens to one of our best players. This this year so happened to be like we're injury ridden all over the place. With Saka being out, Udegaard, even Rice missed some games. Martinelli, Havertz, Jesus, Tomiyasu, some key players been missed, and Ben White. All things considered, Russ, how do you feel about this year? And how do you feel about Arteta? And how do you feel about the key players of um, this year's bunch?
Well, I was of the opinion that if we'd had a fit squad for the whole season, I think we would have run Liverpool a little bit closer. Because I think Liverpool pretty much just had a free run at it, and they had no pressure put on them. So they were just winning like pretty much all their games. Obviously, they slowed down towards the end of the season once they'd actually won the league. But I think that if we'd have put them under a bit more pressure, I think it wouldn't have been as easy for them to win the title. Obviously, we've had injuries pretty much since the start. When was Odegaard injured? Was it September, October time? And he was out for like
Yeah.
3 months. And obviously, Saka went down, and Havertz, and obviously Ben White's been in and out. Timber's had one or two injuries, a few knocks. Party was out for a little while, but I think he's had a really good season. In honesty, obviously losing Martinelli as well. It's basically our whole front line was out, so you were stuck with Trossard playing Marino up front. Which, to be fair, he wasn't actually too bad. His numbers are quite good
Hmm.
considering he's never played up front before. But yeah, I think we were lucky for most of the season having like David Raya, William Saliba, and Gabriel at the back pretty much fit for most of the season. I know Gabriel got an injury towards the end, but I think that we would have run Liverpool a little bit closer. I think we could have actually mounted a title challenge, but it once one player came back, another one got injured. So it was one of those. Hopefully, I think it was this season that because obviously we finished second 2 seasons like the 2 seasons prior, we were quite lucky with injuries. We never really got any, and then this year I think that some of those players were in the red zone,
Hmm.
and just those injuries just caught up with us. I think it's an anomaly, but if we can get a few players in, a little bit more depth, hopefully we can put in another title challenge next season.
Yeah, and to me, Russ, you talk about players that were hurt as well, like Ben White, who had anchored Saka down at right side of the pitch for like the past 2 years prior, well 2 years, well we got 3 years prior, he wasn't so good at right back. So getting Timber back at right back healthy this year for the most part, I think he missed the last 2 games, maybe that's in the season actually, due to injury. We didn't know how he would do because he done his knee in the year before. Just the first game of the season, I believe. So I was considered. I think whenever he went out, Ben White did. You asked Timber to go back to right back, which to me, I think most fans prefer him at that position. Then you saw the emergence of Miles Skelly and also Ethan Nwari coming in for Saka and Udegaard in that position as well, towards the right, more so than Saka. in Odegaard. What are your thoughts this year, Russ, on Miles Skelly and Ethan Newari, as far as getting them on the first team and them both having good years?
I think you got to start with Skelly really, because obviously if we hadn't had the injuries at left back, obviously Zinchenko's coming to the end of his Arsenal career. Tomiyasu was injured, came back for one game and then got injured again. It's really unfortunate. I like Tomiyasu. I think he's a really good combative like left back. I think he if he was fit, I think he'd probably be first choice. But obviously that opened up a position for Lewis Skelly just to be thrown in there. And to be fair, I mean he's England international now. He's done
Hmm.
so well that I think he probably is first choice now. I'm like a really big fan of his. With regards to Wanyeri, he didn't really play him towards the end of the season, which I think was a little bit strange. Even though we had the injuries, he's still sort of, I don't know why he's kind of protecting him. I don't know
Hmm.
why he doesn't even sort of like get 15 minutes in some games. He just doesn't really bring him on. And from my point of view, when they're sort of that age, they haven't got any fear. So if you just throw them into a game, they're unlikely just to succumb to the pressure because all they want to play football. So Wanyeri, I know he's kind of trying to nurture him, but it will be interesting to see what Arteta does with him next season.
Yeah, and like me and Gary had this argument about Ethan Newari, how if he's a viable backup to Saka and or Odegaard, because he's been playing on the right side this year, and that's where he's most successful at. Um, do you agree with that, Russ? That there needs to be a better backup for Saka and Odegaard down the right side, or do you think Newari is that guy that could come in for either both Saka and Odegaard, or do you think we need to buy someone in the summertime, or is Ethan Newari ready to manage a backup role at Arsenal, given Saka and Odegaard a break when need be? Because the issue has always been that Saka will get hurt, and he did this year, and it cost us some games to where we needed someone who's capable of backing up Saka, and I believe that he's that guy to do so. Do you think that's a fair assessment to have him as backup, or do we need someone else with more experience?
The thing is, I think it was a really strange summer last season. We had obviously Vieira went out on loan. We sold Emil Smith Rowe, and we literally had no one in behind Erdegaard. So if Erdegaard was injured or we had a dip in form, there wasn't really anyone we could replace him with. And going forward, that is a problem because Erdegaard hasn't played that well for like the past 4 or 5 months. But
Hmm.
he's had to play every single game because there's literally just no one behind him in that position. It's really annoying, and I from my point of view, I think Wanyeri's probably better on the right. I don't really see him as a sort of a centre because he's one of those. He's sort of like a Zaka. He can sort of cut in and sort of shoot towards goal, which unfortunately Erdegaard doesn't. I know it's sort of contradictory, but Erdegaard doesn't really shoot very often. When Wanyeri does, because as I say again, he's young. He hasn't got any
Hmm.
fear, and he's willing to take a shot. Willing to take a chance. Where Erdegaard sort of looks for the pass, which he's got a good right foot when he can hit the ball. So I don't see why Erdegaard doesn't do that more. But I think it may just be because he's the captain that he's sort of trying to give the other guys more of the ball, maybe. But
Hmm.
Wanyeri for me, I think he'll probably be better deployed on the right. And then once he's a little bit older, obviously you can sort of drop Saka from like cup games or certain games in the Premier League. But yeah, for me, I see him more as on the right more than in the centre.
Hmm. So you bring up Odegaard, Russ. So why do you think he just has stopped shooting so much? Because remember, really, the first season he signed on with us, not the loan, but the first year he signed on with us, he had a good go to assist record, and all of a sudden just start shooting the ball in the goal. Where to me, like you said, he has a good left foot, and it just all of a sudden has stopped. Is it because he's trying to get players involved, or is just because Arteta's telling him to do something different?
I don't really know. I think it may be just a factor of a lot of things. Obviously, he's had a few things in his personal life.
Mm,
Obviously, coming back from that injury, he doesn't get a rest, and that shows in his performances that he's not playing well, and he hasn't done for a very long time. But the fact is that there's no pressure on him. There's no one sort of behind him
mm,
who can come in and take his spot. So basically, he's just going to play whatever, and he is a captain as well. So I do see a captain should always be on the pitch, but it might if there was someone just behind him who could have a chance of breaking through into that spot. I think that might make Odegaard buck up his ideas a little bit.
mm. So, Russ, so are you the opinion that it's hard for Moreno and him to work side by side with each other more so than it is Declan Rice and Odegaard work with each other? Because it seems like to me like since Xhaka has left Arsenal, they've been lacking a complementary eight for Odegaard. Do you think that Rice is better to partner him, or is it Moreno?
I would probably say Rice. I say Rice is more of an 8 than a 6.
Hmm.
For me, also we know Rice will take a shot. He's also on set
Right,
pieces. He was also captain at West Ham, so there is a bit of leadership there. So I mean, I think you could put Rice anywhere in the midfield, and you'll still get the same amount of effort. You know.
right.
So I mean, Marino, he's a bit of a funny one. I don't really sort of know where he sort of fits in because when everybody's fit, and so you assume next season you'll either have Rice or Zubimendi. If Party does sign his extension, he's going to be a backup, and
Hmm.
Marino probably will be as well. I can't see Marino starting many games, not the big games anyway.
So
But
you'll see. Sorry, Russ.
we definitely need that person who can sort of push Odegaard for that position.
You mentioned before how Moreno wasn't that bad as a makeshift nine. Um, I personally, I personally think Arteta's able to do is use these midfielders, these tall midfielders like Moreno, like a Havertz, and somehow make it work to where they'll score goals for us when need be. I find it kind of cool that he's able to do that, especially with Moreno, because whenever he had a goal against, was it Real Madrid in the Champions League, he had that goal spot on. Do you think that the future for both the Marino and Havertz is through the middle, or excuse me, as number nine, because they both have very good length and they can also head the ball in, or do you see Marino and Havertz in midfield? Because that's the argument, right? That some Arsenal fans do have. Is when they're both healthy, they could be in midfield. However, whenever Havertz signed with Arsenal, he wasn't really successful at midfield. Do you agree with that, or do you have a counterpoint towards that?
I think, well, unfortunately, at the time, Havertz wasn't really bought in as a midfielder. You can sort of tell that he was bought in as going to be a type of forward, so we haven't really seen Havertz play in that midfield role.
Hmm.
From my point of view, I think that because we will sign a striker, and depends who it is. I mean, if you're spending 90 between 60 and 90 million pound on a striker, they're not going to sit on the bench.
Hmm.
So what do you do then? Do you leave Havertz just as a backup, or you sort of integrate him into a sort of a two pivot forward line, which I can't really see
Hmm.
him doing because that just doesn't seem to be what Arteta wants to do. So I mean, you could rotate Havertz and Odegaard, but I think it would be a waste of what Havertz can actually bring to the side. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't include Hazard, that it change the formation basically.
Yeah, so you would have a forward and have a
Okay.
striker, and then you can have like sort of, let's say Kai would play as a sort of the Bergkamp behind him.
Right.
But obviously we don't play with that type of formation. We play with a three forwards, don't we, essentially?
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with Kai Havertz next season. Because as I said, if you're paying 60, 90 million pound for a striker, whether it be Sesko, Gyökeres or whoever, then they're not going to sit on the bench.
So the ultimate argument is, which one would you prefer, Bucharest or would you prefer Cisco?
Mm.
And that's like what BBC and all them pundits have to say about it. I know that on the Arsenal fan circle we talked about it as well. Um, do you want goal scoring, or do you and hopes to become a goal scoring machine? What are your thoughts on both?
I'm not gonna lie, Alonso. I haven't really seen too much of either of them to actually. All I look at numbers, right? If you want a pure striker, then you've got to go for Gyökeres. That's what I'm saying. If you want basically what we've with Kai Havertz, he's quite similar height to Benjamin Sesko. Obviously, Sesko is a natural forward, but I think that it would. If you look at it purely on numbers, you have to go for Gyökeres because he will score goals no matter what. He's done it in the Championship. Obviously, he's gone over to Portugal and he's like scoring a goal more than a goal a game, which is insane. It's actually ridiculous. Obviously, the Premier League's a different kettle of fish, if you understand that saying. It's yeah, I don't really know. As I said, I haven't really seen too much of either of them. I saw Gyökeres play against us in the Champions League, and Saliba and Gabriel sort of had him in the
Down.
pocket. Yeah, he didn't really do that well. But obviously, it would take him a little while to adapt. But if he gets he would score goals at Arsenal. That's what I think. He would get at least 20 goals a season, whereas Sesko might have to work up to that. So from purely just looking at numbers, I would probably say Gyökeres. Hi Tony, how are you?
So we'd like
Hello.
to welcome our friend Tony Turner to the podcast. Hello, Tony. How's it going today?
TT.
It's going.
So Tony, we were talking about Russ. I was talking about Russ, how he felt about Arsenal this year, and just some players basically who's basically injury record we have had this year, and then we talked about Miles Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri coming into the team, and we were talking about Odegaard and Declan Rice and how Marino and Havertz will fit in next year. Talk to us about how you feel about everything that we talked about as far as the injuries go, and who has surprised you, who has disappointed you this year, and who would you prefer, Gilchrist or is it Cisco?
Neither. I'll get to that. But, to me, the injuries, I saw them coming. That's why I picked. And we usually do them the first October or the second break of October break on our race channel. We do our season predictions, and mine was Arsenal third, but they had a good chance of winning the Champions League, which was pretty close. Any other year, we won it in a second. I was able to look back and see the last time four teams didn't finish over 70 points because that's kind of what you have to do that. But I see injuries coming. You can't have Gabriel 4,400 minutes, Saka 4,000 minutes. Playing them, and what's worse about it is you play them in the League Cup and the FA Cup, and you still get knocked out You start with 5 starters and you pull another 5 starters on. So everybody's playing. Nobody's getting a rest. And that goes back to Arteta and this man management and stuff. As far as surprises, Scally, just because we didn't know what we had because we never played him. And my question is, why didn't he play last season? Because he didn't automatically, it's this year I'm 18, I can go ahead and play good football. He had it in him. Arteta should have went to him. Instead, we wasted money on Calafiori. That doesn't look any better than a defender than Zinchenko is. So now we have 2 Zinchenkos, and I don't think Calafiori is as good going forward. Disappointment. I'm not going to go with what everybody says and says Odegaard because to me it's that's the manager deal that's giving him a role of dropping back and covering from having both your fullbacks going forward. Which if you have both your fullbacks going forward, you should have 3 central defensive backs there. You play with center backs back there, and you don't have the problems that you have. You don't have to waste money on a defensive midfielder because you got 3 guys back there. Less work for them, less running. You just stay there, and they're not getting exposed from the players being up there on attack. Gyökeres has better numbers. But with how we fared going into the Portuguese market, I'm just like, no. He had players. I don't know if he's still available or not, but would be a good backup. Jonathan David was available on a free. I would have got that done, but you have to go to the Premier League and buy that's where you shop at. I was said it the other day. You go to Tiffany's if you're gonna go buy your wife some good jewelry. I'm sure Russ would come up with some different department stores in England that you go shop at for the high end stuff.
Marks and Spencer.
Marks and Spencer. No, definitely not. I don't think they have a jewelry department.
Tony, so you mentioned cheaper options, and Russ, maybe you could enlighten us a little bit. And I think Gary or Elise mentioned also Julian Alvarez. There's a link between Berta and himself being at Atletico Madrid. And from what I gather, Alvarez wants to move back to Premier League. Do you think that Alvarez is suited best for Arsenal right now, or do you think that we should maybe not give up on Gyökeres and Xisco? We'll do the question for both you guys.
Well, I think Alvarez is a good player, isn't he? I mean, he's not going to be cheap. I don't think that Atletico are going to sell for any less than they bought him for. So he's an option, don't get me wrong, but kind of hard because he was always playing sort of second fiddle to Erling Haaland, wasn't he, in the Premier League? But his numbers aren't too bad. I mean, I would certainly consider him. He's definitely a striker that we know has done it in the Premier League, has scored in the Champions League. He's a good striker. But I don't know if Tony feels any differently.
He's a good striker. To me, he would be a backup. He wouldn't be a starting. But to me, you still need 2 strikers. Because Kai, to me, you can only rely on him when you're needing the height on the free kicks and stuff like that, corner kicks. I don't think his positioning's the best on the field. Finishing isn't the best. Then there's the talk I don't like of moving him back to the midfield, which
We've already
terrible.
got a backup striker in Marino, Tony. We don't need to buy another one.
You need somebody better than Marino.
Marino's numbers, his XG is brilliant.
Yeah, because he's where he's supposed to be.
Oh, Tony.
Yeah, instead of playing back as a false 10, whatever, false 8 at times, as far back as Arteta likes his strikers to be. You see it with Jesus. Jesus is nowhere near of a goal like he was playing.
Yeah, because he'll fall down, or at least go to sleep, take a nap on the ground.
Yeah, but
God,
he's
it's
still
awful.
they still had him back there. I'm like you. I never wanted him. I thought the 50 million was way too much when he was on a expiring contract. You could have signed him for free in January, got him the next spring. I mean, he's hasn't been here, and that's one thing I looked at before we signed him. He had never played more than 25 league games in his career, so that puts him in the Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, all those chronically injured players. So I just,
Martinelli.
yeah, Martinelli, he's not good enough. You got Trossard that wants to go. So I really think you need 3 wingers and 2 strikers. But
Just
yeah,
talk.
What'd you do
yeah.
with what'd you do with Kai Havertz then, Tony?
I don't know. Arteta fancies him. He makes us worse in the midfield. I don't think he can be a starting striker. I mean, is it a toss up between him and Mourinho for second? I don't know. I think you need to just bring in a striker, 2 strikers, not a midfielder playing striker, not
Yeah,
a
but
forward playing a striker. It's a striker.
if Kai Havertz had been fit since February, how do you think we would have gone?
We want to finish in higher.
What about Champions League?
I think we'd probably still excel in the semi quarterfinal. I just don't think we had enough, not enough clinical in there. Yeah, you maybe get an extra goal or 2, but I don't think it's enough to change where we ended up. Because I think we were lucky when it came to Madrid because we were trying to chase down Barcelona and fight off Atletico Madrid, and I think that's why they kind of struggled in the Champions League because that wasn't their priority. Their priority was winning the league, which they failed. So they should have went with the Champions League. Yeah.
That was still the same starting 11 that played in the Liga, if I'm correct, right, Russ?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, Tony. I think Arsenal worked hard to get where they're at, and in terms of I think they beat pretty good Real Madrid team.
But that one game, we had 9 players that had played the game before on the weekend. We played 9 of 11 guys, and they had 2 changes in their lineup going into that game. So there you had fresh players versus not fresh players. Which fresh players always got to get you further in the Champions League, which they went on to win it. So
yeah, the problem is we had half of our team out injured, so there isn't really a lot we could have done.
Yeah, you could have not ran the legs off of them and play them as many minutes as we do. You could have not had the depth to get us thin as we did.
Finish as high up in the league as you possibly can, rightly or wrongly.
But they're lucky to finish there. Really,
we were. We shouldn't have finished second. I agree. We should not have finished second with all of those injuries. We should not have finished second.
We should have had injuries. We were 2 games away from finishing 6th. If you have 2 losses, then you're in 6th out of a Champions League. That's how close we were to it. And the injuries, they're things that you seen it coming. Saka, he comes back from a World Cup, no time off, straight into it.
Euros.
No, World Cup in 2024. I'm going back. He's not had any rest at all, and that's the problem. He's as many minutes as he can get. Arteta's have put him out there. That's why it's like 3,800 and 4,200. Obviously less this year since he got injured, but these things were coming. There's something that it's either happening in the games or training. I would say training because all these injuries were thigh issues. Every single one of them.
Well, so apparently Josh Kroenke, aka Kroenke, and Arteta on the board or whatever it is, they're gonna have a sit down and just wondering why there's so many injuries to key players. And my hope is that they fix all that because, like you both were arguing or talking about, how there's no way we should finish second 3 years in a row with the squad we have. And
Yeah.
so there's been a complaint, I think, I don't know if it's true or not, that Arsenal in Champions League knockout stages, primarily Real Madrid and PSG, played home and away each round. Russ, you're in England. Is that true or is that a false report?
What do you mean, mate? Sorry.
That Arsenal had to start the matches against Real Madrid and PSG, both home legs and away
Yeah,
games,
yeah.
back to
Oh,
back.
was it? Oh, so you said, yeah. So we played at home both games.
Hmm.
I think that's just the coefficient. I
Okay.
think because we've only been in the Champions League however many years after being out of it, I think it's just I think it's coefficient. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's
But
one of those.
yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to play them home and away. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to
Hmm.
me. Away goals doesn't matter anymore. So I don't
Right.
think there's an
It,
advantage.
it's down to this computer that does all these draws. Like literally, like there's games that they do over 1,000 draws for. So you don't get the balls. Like only the first and second team, I think, were the only ones decided by balls. Everything else is computer. I can't remember if that's the Swedish model or Swiss model. That's how they're playing these games, how they're deciding who plays where. And the
Wow.
group of 8 teams that you play in the opening round, the league stage, whatever the fuck you want to call the opening round. I guess the league stage. I don't.
Right. So I'm gonna ask you one more question, and we'll switch on to wrestling, aka wrestling.
Wrestling.
So, what are you guys' thoughts on Arteta this year and the amount of pressure he's on next year to succeed and win a trophy? I personally think Arteta has done pretty well for himself. I think a lot of fans this generation are in such a rush to put out the negatives, not the positives. Um, do you guys think that this year could be Arteta's last year coming up if he doesn't get things together, or do you think that the board will give him time with new players to come in and make a difference, or do you think that he's on a hot seat?
He should have been on a hot seat going into this year because you're in year 5 and you're staying about the same tilt on your position there. And what gets me is the year that we finished 5th, the team, you never heard what our goal was because we didn't get anybody. Bruno Guimaraes was available, which later on we were wanting him for 90 million, even though we had a chance of getting him for 32 million. And they try to say, oh, nobody was available that window, blah, blah, blah. But you get to that, and their goal was 5th place, but you had a chance to go get 4th by strengthening your side. You didn't do it. You didn't strengthen your side this winter. You didn't do it in the summer. None of those signings helped you. Yeah, Mourinho did when all the other forwards were gone, but you shouldn't be in a position where you're relying on a midfielder to be your striker. We did that last season with Kai. He was horrible. Arteta would have kept playing him there until Jesus got the injury, and then it changed. Now this year, Kai gets the injury, and comes Mourinho, and
Well, yeah, but that's another
there's
thing.
playable.
Jesus got injured as well. So what else can you do? What can you do?
Russ, you've been up there long enough. How many strikers did we usually have? 4 to 5 strikers.
Not really.
Yeah, we did.
Not really.
Look at Bentner. Bentner was like 4th or 5th string.
Well, who was above Bentner?
Adebayor, and I think it was Van Persie at one point.
Any team
And
that plays
Arshavin.
Yeah, but he's not a striker, is he?
He's a winger, I think.
I was like last season. I would say right. So last season, who was it? So your first striker, well, it's either Jesus or Havertz, and third we had Nketiah behind them, right? So you only usually had 3 strikers. Unfortunately, right, we sold Nketiah, which was not a problem because he never scored any goals anyway. We kept Havertz. Jesus came back, got on a hot streak, and then got injured again. So it's like, what do you do? What can you do? But Arteta wanted someone in January. I don't think that he did not want the club to invest in a striker. Of course he did. But whoever was around or at the top just said, no, we won't sign anyone now. We will spend a lot of money in summer. That's what I think Arteta wanted a striker in January. He just didn't get one, or wasn't allowed to sign one.
I still think the club could have went for Watkins.
They could have, but obviously someone said no. Somebody said no. We are not signing a player in January. And I don't think it was Arteta at all. You could tell by what he said in his press conferences.
Yeah, but that's after you had a thin squad and they were starting to get hurt left and right.
But that was the problem. I think Edu left because he saw the writing on the wall. What we did last summer was not good at all. Was not good at all.
Yeah, I still would like the whole story there. It was Edu feeling he wasn't getting the support. Arteta didn't like what Edu was doing. But that was
Edu can only spend the money he's given. That's the thing.
I asked this question like 4 years ago when Arsenal started throwing 150, 200 million into a window. I'm like, are they doing this because do they support Arteta, or are they trying to get to this new format of a Champions League where you have 2 extra games and a lot more money involved? And I don't think I can give you the answer. It's you shake your 8 ball and it says it's cloudy, checking in later. Because I don't think you can say with any certainty if it was the club support for the manager or they're just trying to get in this Champions League format and being happy with Champions League football again, like they were the last 10 years with Wenger.
It was obvious that when Edu left, it was obvious we could all see that we were not going to sign anyone in January. It was just wasn't going to happen.
Right. So, you know, eh, like you said, Russ, you know, who knows what happened in the back room with, Edu and the staff. I think a lot of us fans were disappointed. I think fans that aren't really educated on the Arsenal way will be my Arteta because he's a fallout guy. It's discouraging because reports were that we had money there to spend, and what happened with a disconnect? Who knows? But despite everything, I think Arteta putting Moreno in or Havertz as the lead striker wasn't that bad, considering he could have done a lot worse. Um, right, so we're going to move on to wrestling now. I know this tonight's Raw, and then Tuesday night is NXT, Russell's favorite program of the week, and then SmackDown's on Friday.
TNA is my favorite.
And then Saturday is the Luchadors, Triple H going to WWE, and then you have the Money in the Bank matches on Saturday night. So, what are your thoughts? What are your predictions shortly? Not shortly, but just elaborate more, Tony and Russ, on how you feel about both events on Saturday. It's a jam-packed day for wrestling.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're doing that. Then the following week, AAA goes against the TNA people, which is even little strange, but it should be some good matchups, and I got it here now. So you have Seth Rollins, LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, and Kenta are the 4 of the 5. And on the women's side, you got Naomi, Julia, Rodriguez, Bliss, and you got Rhea Ripley in there. So that's the 5 that's qualified. So far, I haven't looked to see who the matches are tonight. I can do that really quickly. But
So, who do you think, or who do you want to win Money in the Bank?
I take it to be cashed in because you have this tag team that you got out of the end of Saturday night's main event because you had Cody come out and Jay came out to save Cody. So you got them versus our favorite Logan Paul and and John Cena. So there's the two men's title, one match. I would assume that would be the last match. So you'd have somebody with a briefcase, and it'd be very likely that it's cashed in.
That's crazy. That's a good theory, though, Tony.
So on the women's, I'm not quite sure how that's because Ripley and Bliss are the really only like full roster people since Julia and Rodriguez are new, but
Roxanne Perez.
yeah.
So, do you guys have any favorites to win the men's and women's Money in the Bank matches, or do you have any people you want to see win in hopes that they get a push?
I want Rollins to win because I want to kind of see more of what Paul Heyman's gonna do.
Paul. Russ?
Who else is in the match? Sorry.
So, for men's, it's Solo Sikoa, LA Knight, Penta, Seth Rollins, Andrade, and one more person to be announced. And for women's, it's Alexa Bliss, Roxanne Perez, Rhea Ripley, Julia, Naomi, and one more person.
Well, the men's one, that is the most underwhelming Money in the Bank I've ever seen. I just,
Yeah.
it just does,
Andrade getting in there was a surprise.
why? He's not going to win, is he? So it's just, Solo Sikoa, I can't remember the last time I saw him wrestle. It needs. There's not a lot of star power in it. Or LA Knight. I like LA Knight. I can't see him winning it either. I just
Okay.
why put Seth Rollins in there if Seth Rollins is going to win it? I don't.
Here's your last qualifier on the men's.
Is that tonight, right?
Yep.
Oh, jeez.
I don't
You know it's going to CM Punk, which is a good thing, but
it's not the AJ Styles. It would be funny if it was Chad Gable's last.
It could be three-time winner CM Punk.
well, I wouldn't mind CM Punk, but we gotta know it's going to be Seth Rollins. You know, I mean, to me, Andrade being there is kind of cool. I guess Penta, I don't know, and LA Knight, and so like you said, well, it's just the most underwhelming match I think ever all the time. You know, and then the women's, I wouldn't mind seeing Alexa Bliss come back, or at least win the Money in the Bank again. You know, since I've been ill, I've been watching rewatching Alexa Bliss matches and all that. I don't know,
Two of these I could see either of the first two of these getting in there, which is I could see Stephanie getting in there or Dom's girlfriend. Doesn't live.
I wouldn't doubt.
Who's winning? Who's winning? Russ.
Sorry, my mum. Cousin Liv.
Cousin Liv.
Well, we all know why Alonso's been watching Cousin Liv videos for the past 3 days.
No, it's Alexa Bliss.
Alexa Bliss, sorry. Cousin Liv.
Cousin Liv is an Alexa Bliss B.
I like Alexa Bliss. I don't know why they brought her back. They've done literally nothing with her.
Well, they slowly started doing stuff with her. Russ. She had a tag team match with Zena. What's her name, Tony? The Puerto Rican girl.
It's Selena Vega.
No, Selena Vega. Yeah, they had a tag team match, and she won. That's how she got her Money in the Bank. She beat who she beat, Tony? Chelsea Green, right? And the other girl, Mean Chen.
Yeah.
So they're slowly getting her involved, Russ. But I hope they realize that how talented she is and how good she is,
and 2 weeks ago, you finally had the Wyatt Six appear at the end of SmackDown. So
I hope they make it. I don't mind them so much. I just wish that they would just wrestle one.
They wasted so much of our time with all those QR codes. Then they only had them feature for like 6 to 8 weeks. Then they've been gone until now. So it's really been disappointing. They should have had a plan with it. Whether they had injuries, I don't know what was going on, but they haven't done diddly shit with them for the amount of build-up they did.
And I blame creative. You know, I think at a certain point, you know, they got rid of, you know, Ron, they got rid of R-Truth, and they got rid of Carlito. You know, it's like why do you hire people if they can work with if not can work with them or give them a push? You know.
Yeah, but Ron Killings is 53. I with all the wrestlers you had, I wanted to extend his contract either. And the same way, by the way.
He went out on a high, didn't he? He lost to John Cena in a big match I think that's a perfect way for Ron to go out.
Big Ron.
And Carlito would have already been gone, but Mr. Gigantic Head, Pop Figurehead,
They reckon the Miz, they
JD.
reckon the Miz is going to be the next one to get cut, don't they?
I mean,
He's helping Carmelo now. He's into talent. Who else did I tell you that they put on as talent? It was Styles, wasn't it?
AJ Styles.
Styles. Yeah, he's a jobber now.
I don't say that, but
That's his official role. Talent enhancement.
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
They should put him on Superstars.
30 years ago. Right.
Sunday
The
night.
nurse is here, so I'll be back in like 5 to 10 minutes.
Where's he going?
So we're gonna talk about some stuff real quickly. So I mentioned creative, and how do you feel about Triple H moving forward as far as the characterization goes and giving people pushes? Do you see SmackDown like it was 20 years ago, 20, 15 years ago, where you had, you know, basically the B team of Raw roster? Do you see that now with SmackDown, or do you think that SmackDown is catered more to the divas, or the women?
I don't really know. The problem is for me, Alonso, is all right. They're both on Netflix now, so
Oh, right, okay.
they can go as long as they want. They could have a 2.5 hour show, or they could have a 4 hour show because it's streaming.
Mhm.
The problem is, I was listening to something earlier today, funnily enough, and Raw and SmackDown just don't seem as entertaining as they used to be. Obviously, you got the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression Era, and all those. There was a bit more unpredictability about those shows back then. These days, for me, one wrestler can be on one show, then it'll be on the other. If they want to have a brand split like they used to, just do that completely. Shut off the two rosters. Don't have people on one show, then the other show, and move back to the one show. Just have a brand split. You could easily do it. The thing for me is that who's going to be the next superstar? I honestly don't know. You're relying on guys who are in their 40s now. Most of that top end is guys in their 40s. It's like it was in the 80s. You've got the older guys that are basically there, sitting there, not letting the younger guys come through. The only real sort of superstar I can see coming through is Bron Breakker. I can't see. I don't know who else is going to come up to that mark. LA Knight would have, but obviously he's old as well. He's in his 40s. You know, it's for me. You have to have a brand split, and you have to have more wrestling. If you're having a 3 hour show and there's 3 matches, there's something wrong.
So, Russ, do you remember during that time, right, between the late 80s and early 90s, as late as like maybe 94, 95, whenever WWE pushed the new generation, right? I think that needs to resurface again as far as talent goes, because you're seeing NXT. I know you don't like the show, neither do I. But there's some really talented wrestlers there with storylines that could go past NXT, right? And they produce a lot of good talent that have been to the main roster. And like you said, I agree with you because the roster is getting older, like the CM Punk, like the Seth Rollins, like the Roman Reigns.
Drew McIntyre. Are all in their
Yeah, and so I agree with you because at what point does creators say, okay, guys, they can't leave because they're under contract? So at what point do they make the decision to where they get it right and say, hey, guys, we got to give these youngsters a chance because then they'll go to AEW and become successful there. You made the argument that's why John Moxley left because he kind of knew that he couldn't get anywhere in the current roster that they were in. And you can
Well,
also make the argument that that's why Cody Rhodes came back.
you can make that argument all you like all day long because obviously when John Moxley left, Vince McMahon was still in charge. And Vince McMahon had a very different way of thinking that the business was rather than you've got to remember now Triple H reports into TKO directly. TKO want to make money. That is all they want to do. They want to make money. Where when Vince was in charge, he knew wrestling. He knew exactly what wrestling was, how to build characters, how to run storylines. He'd been doing it for 40 years. The man knew what he was doing. But as I say, with TKO, they have to everything's sponsored now. There's no breakthrough stars as such. They rely on these people like CM Punk and all those people just to bring in like the money. That's all they do. And unfortunately for me, I don't see where the next superstar's coming from, and I just don't think it's as exciting as it used to be.
Yeah, because in my opinion, it's gotten too predictable. Like for
Yeah,
example, doesn't win Money in the Bank just by looking at the matches. I do like Penta. I think that he could be really dynamic. But again, every time on Raw, you're seeing him face, the great Americano, whatever his name is, and then you're seeing him get hurt because they're cheating basically. It's like the same gimmick every time. And then you're seeing Seth Rollins start his own group, which is fine, which is good for WWE because you need a stable that's bad guys. But then you had that with the Bloodline, right? So, again, you know, um, what's the guy's name? Ross that joined Von Breaker and Seth Rollins.
oh yeah, the big guy. Yeah, Bronson Reed is it?
The Bronson Reed, yeah. So, he's still young, but then he doesn't get enough push because he's always hurt. Um, so there's young talent out there, but they're just going to go out the wayside because creator they're using right. Because Triple H has his head stuck up, TKO's bum.
I'm sure he's literally just doing what they're telling him to do.
hmm
As I say, it's not as exciting as it was. There's no innovation anymore. It's just advertisements, sponsors, run these old boys into the ground basically. Just make as much money as you can off CM Punk, off Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, all of those guys. Obviously, Cena's in his last year. They're making a lot of money out of him. And as I say, mate, it's not the same as it was even like 2, 3 years ago.
hmm
I think when Cody won the title, that was the culmination of like 3 years worth of storytelling, you know.
Right.
And since all right, since Cody's been champion, it's been, he hasn't been given anyone to fight properly, you know.
Yeah, and then with Cody, with John Cena, I feel that the storyline has gone so bad because you still see John Cena as a good guy, as babyface.
Mm.
You don't see him as like this bad dude who has a ego problem. You can't see it, and I think
Can't see him.
yeah, and they try so hard to do these segments, and it's just unbelievable to me. I can't relate to that. And my coworker, who's a big wrestling fan himself, he's like, "There's no story. It feels so rushed." because John Cena has a belt for like a year, basically. And who's going to wrestle? Nobody wants to step up to the plate, you know? Roman Reigns is on vacation again. Seth Rollins has his own group now. CM Punk is still messing around with Seth Rollins, with Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. So, you have Logan Paul, who's, I don't even consider him a wrestler. He's improved, but then he's still a social media, guy, or celebrity, whatever you want to call him. And he's not a good dude in real life. So, you know, I don't know, Russ, but I think you're right. I mean, it's gotten too it's gotten too old, and like you said, like the story between Cody Rhodes and The Rock and Roman Reigns, it was good storytelling, and it took years to develop, but at the end of the day, it worked. But now you don't see that anymore because it becomes stale, and so I think the only thing that's holding the WWE to its feathers is the women's division, and I think there's a lot of promise there in the women's division because there's a lot of storytelling, at least in my opinion.
No, it's a fair comment.
Um, and I think I think you see Bianca Belair, you've seen Alexa Bliss come back finally, you've seen Roxanne Perez, Liv
Alexa
Morgan.
Bliss came back and they used her once, and that was it for like a couple of months. It just didn't make any sense.
I think she's just a kid too, so. But yeah, I mean, I think the women's division is good. Is a strong division, and you're seeing the new girls too, like Valkyrie. You've seen Lara Valkyria. Come, see, this is part of the problem. They promote the younger female wrestlers, but then they're doing it with the guys, dude. I mean, I know I don't want to sound like this is awesome, but it kind of is. I think to me, the women's division is at its best it's ever been.
So the women's division. I mean, as I say, like the past few years, the women's Royal Rumble's been better than the men's,
Hmm.
and it has been. I mean, the women's division is stacked, and they're all young. They're all young, pretty much. You've seen like they didn't have to rely on like Charlotte Flair. Natalia's not there anymore. All right, you have Becky Lynch, who's been around a while, but all the rest of them are like young ladies who are actually great in the ring. And yes, you're absolutely right. The women's division is stacked and it actually looks good going forward, whereas the men's is just the old guys. And who's going to overtake those guys?
Yeah, I mean it's puzzling to me, Russ. And I don't know where it stems from, but like I said, I think it stems from creative. It stems from TKO. It stems from The Rock's presence because he's still around. And I had a conversation with Tom way before a while back how The Rock's influence she never had been. She just left it alone and just been in the background. But I think him reappearing every so often has kind of hurt the WWE in respects that he I feel like he calls the shots more so than Triple H. That's my opinion. But if that's true, then it's all messed up now, in my opinion.
No, you're right. You're right. As I say, it's for me, it's gotten very stale. And as I said, you've got a wrestling show that's like got 3 matches on it. That's that's not wrestling. It's talking, it's doing promos and stuff like that, advertisements, all this sort of stuff. It's I just don't get it. I don't know what TKO's end game is. I obviously they know how to promote shows. They know what they're doing from that extent, but from a wrestling standpoint, I don't think they actually know what they want from WWE. As I say, they like to get like a front row ticket for a show, it's like 6 figures now. That's ridiculous. If you want a WrestleMania ticket, like at the front, it's like nearing $100,000.
So they dictate the ticket pricing.
Yeah. It was to say there was a thing like Randy Orton not long ago. Someone said how much they pay for a ticket, and even he was like, he couldn't believe how much it was for like a front row ticket at a wrestling show, at a premium live event.
Yeah, I think even at Tulsa tonight, like the floor seats are like $600.
600.
Yeah, 600.
Wow.
And it's like 50 to be up there in the nosebleeds.
My mom, for my birthday, took me to an event. It was on a Friday for my birthday, 97. She took me to a taping. I think. It was an event, and we had sat right up high in nosebleeds at the old Compact Center where the Rockets played. That was a fun time. Anyway,
She should have taken you to Astrodome when they had
okay, Tony. You know,
WrestleMania.
she's a single mom, Tony. Jesus, man.
Priorities.
And anyway,
Especially to be a priority.
so Tony, do you have any final thoughts? And I'll go to your next, Russ.
I'm interested who's gonna be the last people in tonight. It's almost definitely will be Phil.
And the trainers.
I'm not sure who's win on the women's. You
So
can see it be Stephanie.
Look here. Hey, Tony, what are the odds that Phil versus trainers again?
What do you think Big Phil's going to win and cash in on John Cena?
I don't think he will win.
Seth Rollins.
But because you got two guys that can protect Seth Rollins.
Exactly. So why have him in there? It just, unless you really just want to go down the standard storybook way of doing it, unless someone comes out on the, so what? So basically, it's going to come down to CM Punk and Seth Rollins. It's got to.
But I imagine that will be SummerSlam, right? It has to be Phil and Rollins at SummerSlam.
Then Phil fights John Cena in his last match.
But one of those belts has to go. That's why I think it's gonna be cast in this weekend. Like I said, you got both heavyweight champions out there at once, so better time to go out there and get it. Plus, you're running out of time before you get to SummerSlam.
Do you think it's a fourth man joining the group?
I think there will be. Not sure. I would like it to be Dragunov / Gavin, which he should be back by now. It's been past the 9 months on his knee going out.
I don't think they'll put anyone like that in there just for the fact that he hasn't been on.
Like, but they already did that. Bronson Reed hasn't been on anything since his injury.
When did he get injured? What was it? Survivor Series?
I think so. Is that the one where everybody got injured?
Yeah, that was the. They're all in the cell, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like.
Didn't he break his? Wasn't he put on the table and then he broke his leg or something?
Yeah, broke his spine, I think.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal when you're 400 pounds. That would be hard. That would be hard to heal up. I imagine it's just a solid cast and you don't do anything for 2 months.
I just don't understand why he's in that group. It just doesn't. I don't know.
because he can annihilate anything. That's why.
Yeah, but so can Bron Breakker.
Yeah, but they did such a story with him because it's like it was funny because it was like right when Ben told Tom, it's like I'm done with him, and it was right after. It's like then he got 6 tsunamis on Seth Rollins. That's what's funny. It's somebody that gave Rollins a 4-month vacation. That's what's happened anyway, but it's because he had a little bad back and bad knee. But he did a lot. He was going against Braun Strowman, and I don't know. I think he's got that beastly overpowering deal. So I think that's kind of why they picked both the guys who they had.
Right. So we're towards the end of the show now. I want your predictions on the NBA Finals. So as you know, it's the Indiana Pacers versus Tony's Oklahoma Thunder. So
My
we're gonna
Thunder.
do some predictions. My prediction is gonna be 4-2 to the Thunder. Tony and Russ, what are your predictions?
Yeah, it's either gonna be 4-1 or 4-2. I don't think it's gonna
For
be
the Thunder?
very hard for them to get past the Pacers. What puts Thunder at a little bit of a hurt is they don't usually use a regular big man that they do every once in a while with the Hardenstein, the big fucking German guy, but he's more coming off the bench. But I think you got the scoring with the Thunder, you got the 3-point scoring, you got the league's MVP on there, so they should win because I think what teams they faced were harder. You had Denver, which was a tough long series, which figured it would be because you got the Joker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about both teams really, but I heard SU is a really good player. He won MVP. He's very, very young, very good. And I think that Oklahoma City have a good coach. They're very fast. Russ, what do you predict?
I'm not going to pretend to know anything about this.
Take a guess, Kyle.
Oklahoma, just to upset you.
So we're going for the Pacers. Right. So, and guys, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Not really, mate. I'm going to bed in a minute.
I'm just looking forward to this weekend. I think the AAA will be interesting. I've only seen a few matches. I don't know if they had any on during SmackDown or not.
So is Andrade signed back to WWE though?
He's in a match.
No, not Andrade. Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's one of the 4 or 5 they announced that they had signed from AAA.
Oh yeah. Cool. Right. Anyway, we've got to sort out one last piece of business. We've got to sort of decide when we're going to watch Queen of the Ring.
I think you have to talk Alonzo into
that. Russ, you can't get that right.
I'll watch along.
Right.
I'll send you a link to it.
Our quadruple China feature.
Right.
Long.
Right. So, Tony, so I'm gonna ask you a question. I forgot.
He's lost his train of thought now. He's gone.
Thanks a lot, Russ. All right, so so again, this has been the Arsenal Strategy Podcast. I'm your host, Alonzo Alani Spencer. Thanks for Tony Turner and Russ Morgan for joining me today. Try to do these more often because it's important that I do so. Not really, but just to try to kill some time. Anyways, thanks for being on, guys. I appreciate it so much. See you guys on the next one. Hopefully sooner or later. Bye.
Bye.
Adios.